Welcome again to our weekly Node Runners office hours call. I am your host, Nginx, and got a great one today. We've got Steve from Dabble Labs here who's going to demonstrate a node build for us live. So for any of you who are looking at building a node or who are curious about the process,
Oh, this is amazing. Okay, this is Pocket themselves, right? Not Node Pilot. So they're
uh,
doing build a node live.
grind mode, you're going to need to mute. Make sure that you've got your mute button on when you're not talking. Oh, beautiful. Thank you. So, I do want to start off this call by saying, as a weekly reminder, for those of you who are on the path to getting DAO votership, one of the things that's required is participating in creating or helping documentation. There is a Docs for Security Best Practices thread in the Node Runners channel in Discord. If you jump in there and participate, that does count towards getting an achievement on that. The latest additions that were done last week, which was node setup and config, have been integrated now. And the next topic is staking Pocket to your node and connecting your node to chains. So, if you've got some expertise to contribute there, jump over, add to the documentation, and then you can, claim the appropriate achievement afterwards. I am not going to spend a lot of time in introduction here. I think that the meat of this call is the cool stuff today. We have Steve from Dabble Lab on with us, who has been working on some node building documentation, including a pretty great video that's linked in their documentation over there. And today he's going to demonstrate that for us live. So I'm going to hand the stage over to you, Steve. You can go ahead and get your screen share kicked up. And then for anyone who hasn't done this before, just click on his panel where it says streaming when it says streaming.
Yeah, so I just shared my screen. Hopefully everybody can see that. Yeah, thanks, Jenks. I want to start with just there are a lot of people here that I'm quite certain know a lot more about this topic than me. And I started, I guess, like a couple years ago, dabbling with it, and a lot of my the first kind of entry into it was thanks to Ben Van. Your documentation was great, really good help, and helped us put together the Zero to Node video series. So this is kind of an update to that, and I've been documenting the process myself, and you can find it for anybody that's interested. If you go to learn.dabblelab.com, I'm going to just literally be walking through this documentation live, and I also have scripts that I use to set up Node, and I also have set up Node Pilot, which I love. So the goal here, I think, is really just to provide a more detailed step-by-step, like this is what's happening. I think once you know what's happening every step, maybe it makes you more comfortable with running scripts that are out there, or using a tool like Node Pilot, something like that. So really, this is a breakdown of like the raw steps. So with that, I'll get into it. I'm going to just walk through setting up a Pocket node that's relaying to Pocket to the Pocket network. So what I'm not going to get into is setting up other chain nodes like Harmony or any of that stuff. I'm working on getting those steps in here as well, but that we're not going to cover that here. If we're lucky, we'll get a full node set up just in the time that we have here. Like James had said, all of this documentation is here along with video steps. So for each one of these documented steps, there's a corresponding video step that goes through it. I'm going to be using a virtual server that is running on Linode. The steps are pretty much the same regardless of where the server is running. I've got some stuff I'm going to push out here for some other networks. I've got nodes on multiple hosting locations and some of my home computers too. So I'll try to get that stuff out as I can. Linode, if you're not familiar with it, I like it a lot. I've been using it for a while. I think it's relatively affordable. but I'm gonna be setting up or using. I've actually already set this up, but it's just a blank, brand new Linode. This one has 4 CPU cores, 160 gigs, which is not enough. So I'm gonna start by just setting up a volume for this. And again, like these steps on this step here are all in here. So we're going to be going through the steps exactly as they are here. So over here, I'm going to create a new volume, and I'm going to call this pocket. Call this 22. And right now, I think I think it's about. Does anyone know offhand? I think it's like 170 gigs ish right now, which is how much space is going to be required for the Pocket blockchain. So I'm adding a little bit more room for growth on my live nodes. I've got a script that'll extend this if needed, but for right now, that'll be good. And then I go with let's see. Yeah, this one here. Right. And they give you some instructions for attaching the volume and creating the file system and all of that kind of stuff. I'm not going to use that because the way I do it is a little bit different than what they provide. So now, yeah, we should be all set. I also, in the steps here, what I don't go over is the details for setting up DNS. But basically, you need to have a domain name and you need to have a DNS record set up, in a record that's going to point to your node. And I set one up for this. I called it POKT22, and I'm using Cloudflare. You could use whatever DNS provider you want. I like Cloudflare. But yeah, doesn't make a difference. And then once the server is set up and you've got DNS set up, the next thing you want to do is SSH into it. And I'm going to SSH is root at to table that will run. Oh, actually, you know what? It's 022. Zero two two. Hold up on. Yes. Okay. And so once you're logged in, so you don't want to use the root user. Probably you're going to want to create a user. I use the username Pocket. But actually, before we do that, let's set up the volume. I didn't finish this setup here. So the volume, when you create the volume and attach it using Linode, it's just kind of like just attaching a hard drive if you were working on a physical machine. And so I use this here to find out what the volume path is. It's this one here, this 20 gigs, this volume. So yeah, just make sure that the path is correct. And then make a directory with a mount point and then just mount the volume like this. And then, verify that it was created. Yeah, which is right here. So it's 20 gigs. So that's all good. Is you probably want to set it up so that when the thing reboots, that you're gonna also mount that volume. And so I'm gonna do that in here. And again, I'm just following the steps exactly as they are here. So write that out, exit. Okay, so now I've got my instance, I've got my volume, I've got the DNS set up, I'm logged in, and I'm at this 1.5 here, 1-5, creating a user. And I started to say that I create a user called Pocket, and the Pocket core and CLI by default puts the data directory, or puts everything in a hidden directory called .pocket, and that's going to be located in the user's home directory. And this is important because the user's home directory by default is going to be I think in /user. And if you're working on a volume that doesn't have enough room to grow, you're going to end up needing to move that, which is, you can do that a couple of different ways. You can use a flag to reference a different location for the data directory. But what I'm doing here is just creating the user and adding the home directory to that volume. So creating it with a home directory in that volume that we just added so that there's more room. And then setting up a password. Okay, and then just switching to that user. Okay, so now I'm logged in as the Pocket user. So the next part 2 here, starts with just installing some dependencies. Pretty much everything, there's not a lot of dependencies, so I'm going to just start by updating the base packages. And I put, while this is updating, I put all of the dependencies in here. It might be that depending on what your hosting provider is, that some of these are already installed. I'll go through it. Like in Ben Van, your script, these are all in there. I'm going to walk through them one at a time. This could be a script to just install them all at once, but just so I can talk through what they are. Git, you probably know what this is. This is a client for grabbing the source code from GitHub. And build tools are required for building using Go. Some of the the build tools that Go requires are in there. And curl is an HTTP client that we're going to be using to grab a couple of things, but Genesis files, one of them. And then file, this is probably already installed. Yep. And then Nginx is what we're going to use. This is a web server, if you're not familiar with that. This is what we're going to use to proxy requests from the public web to the Pocket core service. Certbot is a tool for registering an SSL certificate, and that's going to be done through Let's Encrypt, which provides free certificates that are limited to, I think, 90 days. I'm pretty sure it's 90 days. So the other thing that Certbot does is set up a service for automatically renewing the certificates. We'll get to that in more detail in a second. And then this last piece here is a plugin for Certbot to make working with Certbot and Nginx a little bit easier. And that is those are the base dependencies. One other important dependency is that you install Go. And you could install Go just using apt-get, which would work. But I think it's better to install Go using like the most current version, and also going through these steps here. If Pocket ever gets updated and they require an update to Go, you're going to follow these steps anyway. So I'm going to just go through the entire process. Like first, we're going to grab the the zip archive for Go, and this is 1.17.7, and then extract that. And then just making sure that the Pocket user owns everything, and I'm moving it into the user local directory because I don't know. I think out of habit, if I was using it for different users, you could just leave it in the user's home directory as well. And then here, I'm just adding the path variable, and then there's a couple other variables that are referenced. I'm not 100% sure that both of these are required. I'm not sure that go bin is, but those are referenced in the documentation, so we're going to add those. And then here, just sourcing the profile mostly to make sure that the path statement got in there. And if you get a response back, this is all good to go. And then if you want to also just check the environment variables just to make sure that they did get in there, you can check for those. Go bin is this one, and then go path is this one here. So that's all good to go. So next, part 2-3, we're going to actually install the Pocket core software. And again, I'm just going through the steps here. First thing is when you create it's all written in Go. So Go projects are in the Go path or source GitHub, and then the actual repository path. And then I'm going to just cd into there and grab, this is where we're using Git to grab clone the repo. All right, and then yeah, just switching into the local repository now, and then checking out the latest branch. So for this right now, it's release candidate 0.7.1. What you'll want to do if you're doing this in the future, that's the current one now, but you want to go check out the repository to make sure that you're checking out the current branch. And once that's done, then we build it. Yep, we should be done, I think, by office hours. I say that right when it stalls. Does anybody have any questions or comments up to this point while this is going?
Beautiful. Any questions so far?
Okay.
Yes.
Yeah.
Hello.
Yep, go ahead.
Quick question. I see you've been adding some storage. It's not. I don't see it as a disk as a local machine disk. Do you have any issues with IOPS or disk wait time?
Yeah, that's a good question. I didn't mention this. Like one of the reasons that I like Linode is that in most of the regions, the volumes are NVMe volumes, so it's fast disk storage, and so that's why one of the reasons why I use this. And I would say, and again, like there's other people that I know have a lot more experience with this, but what my experience has been is that you really want to have fast IO storage. And I've got some other things just in this, if you go out here, like there's a lot of other scripts that I've like put out here in resources for like testing IO performance and things like that. But that, to your point, that's like really important. So I'm not sure. Does that answer your question?
Yes, yes.
Okay, great. Yeah, so now, you're welcome. So now we have Pocket installed, but just to confirm, we're just gonna run Pocket version, and yeah, so we've got release candidate 701, and I'm gonna just change into home directory here. All right, so next, you're gonna create an account. So a Pocket account is like the wallet. You know, this is where this is going to be associated with the node, and this is where you're going to stake the Pocket when you get to that point, which I didn't mention, but you can go through all these steps without staking any Pocket. You can get a node set up. You won't get any rewards, of course, but you can get a full node set up and working without staking anything. So you can go through all this even if you're not at a point where you are ready to stake. But yeah, the account is the next step. So we're going to just use, now we're using the Pocket CLI for this. And create a good passphrase, and there is our account that was created. And yeah, so just to make sure, would also run accounts list. This is just going to show that the account is set up here locally, which if you see this, it is. But the next step is for a validator node, you need to associate the account with the node, with the validator, and that's what we're going to do here with this. So it's accounts set validator, and then we're going to just use this, which is the account that we just created. Okay, and then same thing, except get validator, just to confirm. Yep. So our validator address is all set. We are good to move on to creating the config file. So there's a couple of different ways you could do this, and I've seen other references. Like you can just start Pocket right now, and it'll create some of this stuff. I like to do it a little bit differently rather than going in there and editing it. So I'm going to just I use this JQ, which is like a command line tool for working with JSON files. So I use that to create and modify the configs, and yeah, so that's what we're doing here. So we installed JQ, and now this is I'll show you the command we're going to use to create the config file. And in this one here, I've got the seeds. Actually, let me just show you, because that's the next thing here, just to verify. So yeah, the config file is something that you want to get familiar with. So we changed a couple of things in here. One, we added the seeds right here. In those you can find, I think I had a link on here. I guess I don't, but you can find those in the Pocket documentation. I'll add a link out to that, so for anybody that's wondering where they came from. And then a couple of other things that I changed in here. One is down here in the end. So one is the port for the Pocket service by default defaults to 8081. but we don't want to expose all of the Pocket service to public. So we're going to be setting up Nginx to proxy 8081 to the Pocket service. So we changed the port here from 8081 to 8082. So the RPC port 8082, and then the remote CLI URL was changed to 8082. And the other thing that I changed is I changed the RPC timeout. I think this is by default 3000. I don't know if anybody knows for sure. I think it's 3000, but I changed it to 15,000. All right, that is the config. The next thing that we need to do is set up the chains.json. The chains.json file is going to reference all of the RPC endpoints that this Pocket node can relay to. Like I said, when we got started, we are just going to be relaying to the Pocket blockchain, which is the ID for that is 0001. And you can find all of those up here. There's a link to that right here. All of the different IDs for the different chains that are supported. And in this case here, we're kind of just relaying to the same node that we're setting up. So kind of relaying to itself. And then do you want to set up another identifier node? Not right now. Okay. And another thing here, like the Pocket CLI doesn't really provide a way to make changes to change.json. So after this, you're probably better off just using a text editor to edit the change.json, which is in Pocket. Yeah, so change.json, you can edit it right there. It's got a lot of background noise. Sure.
Yeah.
Okay. And then, so we've got our change.json. The next thing that we need is we need a Genesis file, or we need the Genesis config, and we're going to get that from the Pocket repository here. And we're going to use wget to get that. Right. Yep. I don't know what the permissions need to be on all of these. I see some of them like have execute permission, some of them don't, but I'm gonna I don't know why it would need execute for a JSON file, but actually you don't even need to do that. So, but let's see. Yeah, the next is the node has a lot of files that are going to be open at any one time. In a Linux environment, at most Linux environments, there's limits that are set for how many resources a user can use, and like default limits. One of those, this -n, is the number of open file descriptors a user can have. So the default here is 1024. We need a lot more than that. There's a formula for figuring this out. I saw someplace. I can't remember. I can't remember where, but I'm not sure what the formula is. But we need a lot more than 1024. So we're gonna basically be setting the limit to 16384. And I think this -s just means it's a soft limit. It's not gonna like completely stop there. And then just to make sure that that limit is set, go like this. Yes, it is. And then you also want to set it in your limits comp file. And this is just to make sure that like when you log out, log back in and restart, that it's still going to be set. Yeah, we just this here, put it right here. And this is the user. So if you're using a username other than Pocket, you're going to want to change that. And output prefer and exit. All right. So now we're done with the first 3 steps, and we are on to step 4. or part 4, I guess. And this is, we're going to be configuring the proxy, starting with using UFW, which is the uncomplicated firewall, which is not the firewall. It's a tool for working with the firewall. But anyway, we're going to start by just enabling it, and yeah, you want to follow these steps through. Don't get yourself locked out when you're doing this, so don't log out or anything after like enabling the firewall, not setting any of the rules. But we're gonna start with the first rule is just gonna deny all traffic. Yeah, and then we're gonna allow, this is port 80 and 443, this Nginx full. And then of course SSH. And then 8081, this is the public HTTP port that the Pocket core is going to use. And then this is the RPC HTTP port for the RPC. And this is Tendermint actually, which is what Pocket uses. And then this last piece here is just confirming that the yep, it's all good. So we can move on to setting up the SSL. We call this, I think we call this 20, this is 22, right? Yeah. So I mentioned earlier that we're going to be using that tool that we installed when we set up the dependencies certbot. And certbot is going to go create a certificate, SSL certificate using Let's Encrypt. Just need to change this and add the host name. So I call this POKT022, I think. Hold on a second. Yeah. And this is going out to Let's Encrypt, creating the certificate, and yep, that is that's good. And then you can, I mentioned earlier that the Let's Encrypt certificates last, I think, 90 days, I'm pretty sure. Yeah. So you need to renew them. And that is, there's a certbot sets up a scheduled task, like uses AT or cron to schedule a renewal before it's expired. But you can test that by running a dry run here. Yeah, so that is all good. So now we want to move on to configuring Nginx. And Nginx, if you're not familiar with it, uses config files for pretty much everything. But before diving into the Nginx config, I just like to confirm that we have the folder for our Let's Encrypt for our certificates. Our certificates are in this folder. So it creates a folder in this path, etc Let's Encrypt live. And so that's good. And now we're going to create a new configuration file for the Pocket proxy. And in Nginx, you're going to create config files, and I've got the format for the file here, but you're going to create those in etc Nginx site stash available is the folder that's going to be in, and this one we're calling Pocket. And you can just copy this config information from here. There's two things that you need to change though. You need to come down here to where it says server name and change this to whatever the DNS name is that you're using in our case. And then also the path to the certificates, which is right here. Probably come up with a better way to do this, but that's how it works right now. Just verify this looks good, that looks good. Yep. And all right, so that is done. So we've got the configuration all set up now. We're going to stop Nginx because it's running. And when Nginx was installed, when we installed the dependencies, it sets up like a default config file that just kind of says Nginx is running. I'm gonna disable that, and you can disable config files will stay in sites available, but if there's a symlink in sites enabled, that's what actually makes them live. So all we're doing here is just removing the symlink from the sites enabled for that config, the default config, and then doing the reverse of that, which is creating a symlink for our pocket config, that one that we just created up there. Yeah, and then we're just starting Nginx now. So, yep. And if we want to just see the status, yeah, that looks good. All right. So now we're not going to have time to do this, but I'm going to talk through this. So the next step at this point, we haven't started Pocket yet. And we could start it right now. Actually, we're going to start it in a second, even before we do this. But what you would want to do for like a production or a live validator node is get the current database, and you're going to want to download that from. There's a repository, this one right here. And if you go here, this Pocket Snapshots repository, still loading. You can see, I just look at this time here. So the snapshot gets pushed out to the repository every 12 hours. And if you look at the number of hours on the README, so the last snapshot was pushed 3 hours ago. And they provide like a few different ways of getting the data. I usually use this right here, and I just copy that. And then you're going to want to do this in the data directory. So inside the .pocket directory, which is hidden, you'll see a data directory. You'll need to create a data directory. So and then we would start just paste this in. I'll do it. I'm not sure if this is going to probably blow up on me when I go to test in a second here. But this is basically downloading the snapshot. I'm removing the data directory just so that I can just show you just starting from 0, and we'll start from block 1. All right. Yeah, so this takes about, I mean, depending on the connection speed, I think like on Linode, it takes like an hour and a half, maybe 2 hours currently. So once that starts, this process, you'll be watching this for a while, probably walk away and do something more fun, and then come back. And then once it is completed, back to the prompt, then you could move on and set up a systemd service. So you can just run the Pocket core right now, just from the command line by just doing like Pocket start, and it would be fine. I see like some people use tmux to create multiple sessions and then just run it in a separate session. I think personally, systemd is a better option for running the Pocket service. So setting up a systemd service is this step here, 5-2, and it's pretty straightforward. You're going to create a file in etc systemd system called pocket.service, and we're just going to copy this in here. I'll tell you what this is doing. This is just providing a description when the system is running, and this is saying don't start this service until after the network is up. And for the service itself, the user context that it's going to run it under is Pocket. If you're using a different username, then you're going to want to change that. And then the actual command that's going to run, in this case, we're using the Pocket CLI, and we're running the start command, and then to stop it, Pocket stop. Okay. And that's that. And then this step 7 here is we're just reloading that configuration so systemd knows that it's there, and now we should be able to start Pocket service. And we didn't. It didn't start. I have a suspicion why. Let's try this again. See.
You might want to add a mainnet and a use cat tag on that start.
Yeah, let me try that. I thought I had created the Genesis file, which usually takes care of that, but let me try that. That's a good suggestion. Let's see. Add unit file setting. All right, so Pocket service is running. So this is something with systemd here. Sometimes it's just Sometimes with those files, it can just be like a line return in the wrong spot. Nope. Anybody have any thoughts?
Do you mind popping back open the your system
Yeah.
unit file?
Yes. Set. I guess I could try running it using the full path in Go and see if that. See if this works. Okay, that worked. It might be the environment variables for Go. I'm not sure. I think we checked those though, didn't we?
I just pulled up the service I use, and in my exec start, I have to. So I'm running as Ubuntu as the user instead of Pocket, but exec start line looks like home, Ubuntu, Go, bin, Pocket, then start. Just because that I don't believe the Pocket. It might have to do with where you're setting that Go environment variable. Sometimes doing that in profile is better than bash profile or bash RC because sometimes things can be funny with what shell gets sourced when you're calling it from systemd.
Yeah, so it's maybe not using bash in systemd. Is that what you're thinking?
So it's more bash can be funny if with what initialization it uses, depending upon if it's a login, if it's not a login, if it's interactive, if it's non-interactive. And to be honest, I don't know that full nuance off the top of my head. But the better safe than sorry I tend to do is always just put the full path to Pocket, which if you install Go to like the home directory is normally Go bin Pocket.
Yeah. Yeah, that. Yeah, I'll update. I'll figure out what's going on here and update this. Update the documentation. At this point, we've got everything running. Well, other than the service, so we've got Pocket installed. Like we could right now just. This. Let that run and do. Okay, so I think, yeah, Pocket should be running. It is. We can see here. We've still got some issues with systemd. I'll get that figured out, but in the given our time that we have here, I don't know that I'm going to get that done in 5 minutes. So I'm going to just move on to testing everything. So right now, Pocket is running, and I'm just using the top command to see it running here. These in this 5-3 test everything. This is in here. The first thing that you want to test is to get the height to see where it is. And right now it's at 146. And that's because we didn't finish the snapshot. So it is syncing right now with the blockchain, but you don't want to sync it from 0. Like the current block height, I'm going to Pocket scan right now, is 52,457. We definitely don't want to wait to sync from there. So this shows that it is running, it is syncing, but you want to definitely go with the snapshot. Once the snapshot's downloaded, even if it's a few hours, even if you're 12 hours behind, you're not that far behind, so it'll catch up pretty quickly. And then at this point, again, assuming that we've got systemd fixed, which I'll get fixed and update these steps here. But the last step would be to stake your node if you wanted to stake it and start earning rewards. And the process that I would recommend is just go through and make sure that your account is set up and that you've got your validator set with the account that you're going to use. And then you need to make sure that you've got a balance to that's going to be over 15,000. And I think most people out there recommend having 15,100. So you can see here, I don't have anything in this account because we just created it, so that wouldn't work. But you want to make sure that you've got over 15,000. I always use 15,051, and I stake with 15,050, and then I've got like one left over for like network fees, and yeah, once you're to this point, you run this stake command, and in this command here, you're going to have your validator address, which is going to be this address here. You're going to have this denominator, which you Pocket is just like whatever the Pocket amount is times 1,000,000. It's 10 to the 6, and then the chain ID, which is going to be mainnet. Wait a second. No, this is your chain IDs. These are going to be the IDs of the chains that you're relaying to. So this would just be like a comma separated list like this of each of the chains that you're relaying to. Your DNS name with the SSL port 443, and then the mainnet is going to be the chain if you're going live. And then this is again a new Pocket. So this is 1/10. 1% of a Pocket, right? 0.01 of a Pocket. So that's going to be the network fee. And once you've done that, you'll get a result back that says that the transaction is out there on the network. It's going to take a little while before it's live, and then once you can run this Pocket query node, and then we'll do this. This isn't going to work, obviously, because we haven't staked it, but then you would run this. If you get this error message back, it means that the transaction hasn't finished up. Just keep trying back. And then once your node is live, you'll get a response back that'll show the amount staked to come out of your balance. And yeah, that's it. Where are we in time? We're literally at 1 o'clock. So hopefully that was helpful. I know we're out of time. I'm happy to stay a few more minutes if anybody has any questions, but I definitely don't want to hold anybody up because, yeah.
Well, I mean, we did prove that it could work inside of an hour roughly. Does anybody have any questions they want to ask now?
I just want to say thank you. That's awesome work. Thank you very much.
Beautiful.
Yeah, it was a piggyback on your work, Ben. So thank you.
Nice. Well, if nobody has any questions now, I hope that that was useful from a seeing what goes into getting a node up and running perspective. And as always, we do meet up every week, noon EST, for our weekly Node Runner office hours. We'll see y'all next time. And big thanks, Steve. I appreciate it.
Yeah, no, my pleasure. And if anybody does use that documentation and finds anything else that needs improvement, please please do let me know. I'm on the just hit me up here in Discord, and I'll get it fixed or polished so that it's still a work in progress. But if you find anything, I really appreciate you letting me know. Thanks so much.
Absolutely. All right, y'all. See you next week.